Hey there, I'm Neil. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the host of my new podcast, Pause and Rewind. I'll be chatting to changemakers, thought leaders, and role models who all share a common goal. They're striving to make the world a more inclusive place. And let's face it, we need it. Each guest has a unique story when it comes to doing their thing, and we often know who people are in the now. But how much do we really know about them? Pause and Rewind takes a moment to explore the experiences in my guest's life that led them to where and who they are now. Because everyone loves an origin story. We'll dive into tales, anecdotes, and what makes our guests tick. So, are you ready to pause and rewind? Hello, and welcome to another episode of Pause and Rewind. I hope that you're well, and I hope that some of you have bought tickets for the first ever live recording of Pause and Rewind taking place next Wednesday on the 16th of April. We'll be at the Common Press in Shoreditch, London's queer, intersectional, and really wonderful bookshop. And I'll be joined by special guest, Shah Bailey. Shah is amazing. She's a good friend of mine, and she is an all-round queer inclusion hero, and I'm so excited to dive into Shah's origin story. Shah and I are both oversharers, so you are in for a good evening. This episode is featuring the wonderful Benjy Kusi, and Shah actually introduced Benjy and I at UK Black Pride last year. Benjy is a wellbeing and inclusion consultant, and they are well known for producing really engaging, thought-provoking, and challenging social media content. And with over 240,000 followers across TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, and beyond, Benjy is really spreading the message around the importance of well-being, kindness, and also showcases his passion for inclusion and justice as well. He's the author of the book Hope This Helps: How to Be Kinder to Yourself and Others, which is a practical guide to the practice of self-care, empathy, and conscious inclusion. And I've been following his content for a while, really enjoying it. But we're so excited to get to know Benjy more. I love the way that he shows up in the world, as with all the guests on Pause and Rewind. And I was really excited to learn more about him. I hope you are too. Here it is. Hey there, Benjy. Welcome to Pause and Rewind. It is brilliant to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Neil. I'm so excited to be a guest on your podcast.
Well, I'm delighted that you said yes, and I'm going to ask you the question I ask all guests at the beginning. What does the world look like for Benjy Kusi right now?
The world looks like a lot of different things. So I wear many hats. I am an inclusion and wellbeing consultant, content creator, writer, speaker, yapper for hire, I say often.
You need
So
that on a t-shirt.
Yapper for hire, yeah. So I'm doing a lot of things. So I've got like the book festivals coming up, so I'll be at Hay, and then I am doing a lot of work on like strategy projects within the space of like media and tech predominantly, in regards to like diversity and wellbeing management. So I've got a few clients in that space who I'm working with. Got a lot of few exciting speaking engagements coming up, which I'm really excited about. I love having that in-person interaction. And I love curating those moments to kind of, yeah, deliver an important message and hopefully in an engaging way. And also, I'm creating content. So you can find me everywhere that, you can watch videos. So YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. I'm on LinkedIn as well. And I just launched a Substack, actually. So if
Well,
that's your back,
hey,
follow me on there.
we'll share all of those in the show notes. Congrats on the Substack. I've got a Substack, and I've been really crap at keeping up with it. I promised myself last year I'd write 2 articles a month,
Okay.
and I have not fulfilled. So I need to get working. So you've given me the kick up the arse I need to do it. Let's talk about your content. Like, I love your content. I love your energy. I love your insight. It's really thought-provoking. It is challenging. And it's really varied. And I'd love to know where the inspiration comes for each of those different things, the strategy behind it. Tell me all.
So I started my page. So I started on TikTok, and I basically, the inspiration was that I thought that there was a bit of a barrier to entry online, specifically when it comes to conversations around inclusion and justice work. And I kind of feel like I kind of felt like at the time there was an opportunity for content that was specifically designed to equip and empower people to make a positive difference, which is what I say I do. And my content, it's very snappy. It's a bit longer nowadays, but when I first started, it was like 50 seconds, like a minute max. And it's like explaining, I'm going to explain this time, or I'm going to give you three tips so you can, if you want to be better at this, or, if you want to be more inclusive in this way, here's three ways you can do it, or here are three books that you may want to read, or, so it's kind of snappy educational content that's all centered around inclusion and also well-being. So I feel like well-being kind of naturally kind of aligns with inclusion and justice work as well, inclusion, well-being work and justice work as well. So yeah, so inspiration wise, I would say that we're all experts on our own experience. So I do talk a lot about being black and being queer. I like to say I'm professionally black and queer in many ways. And I love that for me. But a lot of my work is also centered around allyship and how to do the work of allyship and advocacy. And then also as well, something I'm really curious about. I did philosophy at university, and I've always been interested in how we exist and why we exist in the way that we do. And a lot of my content is also just centered around just critically thinking about why we have certain social norms, right? And critiquing that and being like, actually, is that the most empathetic kind of thing to believe in, or is that the most sensitive thing to a sensitive way to treat people? And so yeah, a lot of my stuff is kind of like I guess a bit existential as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I have been loving the critical thinking side of your content
Right.
recently. Particularly you put up something around kind of saying no
Mm.
and the thinking behind that. Are you right to elaborate just to give people a little bit of an example as to that side of things?
Yeah, so I have a whole section in my book around the idea of like saying no and the value of saying no, and I think no is such an important word to get used to using, right? And also, it's not just a word; it's a full sentence, right? And it's important to really it's important to know how to use that word and to use it often to ensure you have boundaries, right? That's how we establish healthy boundaries. It's by saying no to the things that are not going to serve us, right? Or are not in the interests of like the things that we care about and the values that we hold, right? And some of us are conditioned to say no less than other people, right? By societal norms, we're talking about gender norms and racial norms and that sort of thing. So I'm especially passionate about advocating for people from marginalized communities to say no more often, right? So I think thinking critically about what we need to be saying no to is really important. But a video I posted very recently was actually about how always saying no can be selfish.
Mm,
And it's the idea that actually kindness is like a two-way street, right?
yeah.
And so it's kind to be kind to others, but it's also kind to receive kindness from others, right? Because actually there's data that shows that people feel good when they do good things for other people, right? And ultimately as well, when you never accept help or support, you're kind of sending an implicit and a message that it's negative to need help and to need support,
Mm,
right? And also as well, like allowing people to be there for you also reminds them that they are important to you, right? And that they are that they have value, period, right? Something that I often do is like um if I've helped somebody with something and then they offer me help back in return, I try and say yes, even if I don't necessarily need that help. Obviously it's contextual, right? Like if I feel like they're like overextending themselves to give me that help, then I will say no. But
yeah.
if sometimes you can just tell that they just want to give you something back, they want to show their gratitude by helping you. So then
Mm,
I'll try and say yes, even if I don't need it. They're like, "Do you need an air fryer? I've got three. Okay, I'll take another one." Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's how we build compassionate communities, right? By
yeah.
really kind of nurturing these kind of community bonds and investing in them. And sometimes that requires saying no, but also sometimes that requires saying yes.
Yeah, I love that bit, and as someone that considers myself as quite fiercely independent, it struck a chord with me. You know, it got me thinking, and that's what I really love about your content because you might think that you have it sorted, you might be the most aware person, but actually you do challenge people's critical thinking, and I really enjoyed that piece specifically. So thank you personally. As I say, big consumer of your content. Is there a platform where that you enjoy the most and one that you have find challenging? And I ask this because I saw a little clip of you talking on Student Pride, and it was brilliant. Benjy is holding his head down. No, it was a brilliant clip. It was a
Yeah.
clip of you talking at Student Pride recently, and it was about LinkedIn, and people still behaving like trolls, but intellectualizing it so it didn't come across quite as offensive as it did on other sites. And that was it was a brilliant piece. And although it wasn't a typical piece of your content because it was you being recorded on a panel, it was
Yeah.
also really important to call it out because I think people give LinkedIn a little bit too much of a pass when it comes to not being problematic at all.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I cringe a little bit there because I'm such a planner.
Hmm.
Like, for this chat, I've got all my notes, and I'm such a like very much I guess like type A person. Is that what they
Okay.
say? Right?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right terminology, but like yeah, anyway, I like to be very organized. So when it comes to like, and I love being on panels, but in the moment I'm very, I guess, I don't know, I don't like watching myself back because I'm like, oh, I
Okay.
should have said that differently, or I could have maybe phrased that differently. But that was a very human emotion. Basically on that panel, I was basically
Yeah.
saying that ultimately I get hate on every single platform that I'm on. It doesn't matter whether it's even LinkedIn, where people often think that because people have then their job descriptions and where they work and stuff, and it's a very like quote unquote professional platform, that there aren't people on there being incredibly willfully ignorant, and they are. They're just doing it
Mhm.
in full sentences.
Yeah.
That's and that's what I was saying on there. And I look, I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn are great. It's a great platform, and I've worked on them a few times actually.
Yeah.
On inclusion focused projects, and I think it's a really helpful and useful platform as well. But I just made that point because I think often people just think that trolling is like just something that is specific to like Instagram or TikTok. And I'm really actually very passionate and fiercely passionate about actually saying that, people really diminish and disparage like TikTok. And yet there's so much incredible like content on there. There's so many valuable conversations that are being had on there. And also there's like a level of like radical honesty on TikTok as well, which obviously can be very bad, but also can be incredibly good, right? There are people who are
Mm.
having conversations with no filters about their lived experience, about how they relate to their identity, and it's incredible. And I've learned so much from TikTok in a way that sometimes platforms like LinkedIn can be a bit airs and gracie. And people
Yeah.
aren't necessarily getting to the meat of what they actually want to say, right? And that's something that I try and cut through with my content on there, just to be like
Yeah.
straight up front and direct and kind of what I say and the things I talk about on there. But yeah, every single platform is like, I don't know if you find this, but I think every app is like its own little world. And so they each have their each little different quirks, I would say.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, Facebook for me is the worst. Particularly when it comes to local community groups. Horrendous,
Oh,
horrendous. I live in South London. Honestly, get your popcorn out for some of the shit that kicks off on those groups. It's horrendous. Um, where does the majority of the hate come from, and why do you think it is? Do you think it is people feeling that they are being called out on shit and maybe not coming along on the journey that you want to be taking them on? Where do you think the most of it comes from in terms of where people are coming from?
I think I genuinely do think a lot of it is genuine ignorance.
Mm,
So something that I try and remind myself of is that I think a lot of people live in places where they might not have like met that many people like me, right?
yeah.
Somebody who is not only just like black and queer, but also like very unapologetic about it. Feedback that I get often is like, oh, you're saying that like it's fact, but it's actually just your opinion. So, and I'm just kind of just like, well. unless I've kind of stated that this is like a statistic or something, yeah, it is my opinion. But something about that feedback shows me that you are not used to someone like me speaking in a
Yeah,
direct, confident way and with like strong self-belief, right?
yeah,
So that's a you issue. That's like a you problem, right? Exactly. It's on you. And I mean that in like a kind way, right? Not
yeah,
necessarily a nice way, but in a kind way, an empathetic way. It's like I'm going to engage with you with an awareness that ultimately a lot of the resistance that you are demonstrating, right, is a projection, right? Of kind of what you need to work through. And I'll help you as much as I can, right? And when I can't, I'm gonna leave it there. So I think a lot of it is that, and also people everyone's normal is different, right? So people think that normal equals like I guess like most common, right? And sometimes it is that, but sometimes it is just like, what you believe to be true, right?
yeah,
So who you have in your inner circle, the media you consume, right? That what you're interested in, that's your normal. And so you encounter difference, right? Online, right? But in this instance, and you're like, oh well, that's not normal. That's weird. That's not right. And I think a lot of it is just that. It's people who just like are encountering something that's just very different to their normal. Doesn't justify hatred and prejudice, right? But I think it's a way. I think you asked where did I come from, and I think that is a big place where it does kind of come from.
yeah,
At least for me, when looking at my comment section, there is also then a lot of willful ignorance and
yeah, yeah, of course.
as well.
Yeah, purely for who you are.
Yeah, 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 100%. There is just that. And this might sound kind of wild, but in a way, I kind of find that less interesting.
Yeah, that's so boring and unimaginative.
I find that less interesting because there's nowhere for us to go with that.
Yeah, yeah. It's like when I'm walking down the road and someone shouts out queer, I'm like, all right, 10 out of 10 for observation. What do you want? Like,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, I don't.
let's debate my rights.
Right, right. But that is exactly it though.
Yeah.
I get invited to go on like podcasts and like I get invited to, I've been invited to go on TV once or twice and I've been invited to like into audition for like TV shows where it's essentially the premise is come and debate your rights. Come
Mm,
and debate your right to exist. We want to have a chat about racism and we want you to be on the side of anti-racism. And I'm like, wait, hold on. So what's the other side? And why are we giving it a platform?
yeah, yeah, for
I
sure.
find all of that less interesting. Like, and the thing is like, and that's why there's lots of people who I really admire because they really like go to bat online, and just in general, right? And I have enough self-awareness to know that like that is just not where my
Mm,
abilities best lie. I don't think I necessarily have the emotional capacity to always be going up against willful ignorance. Like, who I'm here for is people who I feel like genuinely like, could do better if they knew more or if they
yeah,
had the right tools or they met the right people. Like it's people in that area who I am speaking to, I'm trying to speak to. I'm
yeah,
not necessarily trying to speak to people who are like willing white supremacists. Like I can't.
no.
Personally.
And that very much ties into what you stand for generally. I mean, you've got the book, Hope This Helps, How to Be Kinder to Yourself and Others. But that's very much in on brand for you, isn't it? In that kind of like really protecting yourself and others around you.
100%. I mean, my route into the world of inclusion work was from the workplace. I started an employee resource group. And the idea of that group really was that I just wanted the workplace to be a better place for me and people like me to thrive, right? So it's always come from this place of like of protection, right?
Mm,
Self-protection, but also wanting to protect others, right? So that's why well-being is really at the heart of everything that I do, right? It's recognizing the humanity in all of us, right? And that we all have equal value, right? But ultimately we exist within structures that doesn't, acknowledge that, doesn't recognize that, and is actively trying to devalue us and get us to see ourselves as lesser so we can be more easily compromised and exploited.
yeah. Are you generally good at living out those values in terms of like applying that for your own approach and self? And are there areas that you still challenge that you find more challenging?
Ooh, it's tough. It's tough. I think the journey of self-kindness, self-compassion, like self-love is exactly that. It's a journey, right? It
Yeah.
has one end point. And the wild thing, so I'm turning 30 this week on Thursday.
Way. Oh my gosh, happy birthday.
So much. Thank you. It's my birthday week. And the wild thing about aging, one of the wild things is that you change, right? Which sounds really
Mm.
obvious. But like I was looking at photos the other day of when I was 20, and I still feel like that person, and like that person is still in here somewhere. But a lot has been kind of grown on top of that person, right? And I've changed a lot since I was 20. And so that brings new struggles, right? New issues, new problems, new scenarios that I've never been in before, right? And
Yeah.
in each scenario, I need to really center myself on the values that I hold to be true, right? Which is that I am worthy, right? I'm worthy of self-love, self-compassion, like I'm worthy of like protection, and that yeah, and I'm worthy of having like boundaries that I hold to. But I think yeah, it can be tough because when you're in new scenarios and new situations, you can you're more likely to kind of go adrift, right?
Yeah.
And so like it's about constantly centering yourself on what is right and what you know to be true and good for you.
Thank you so much for sharing. What a perfect way to kind of like think of it as you hit towards your 30s to reflect on your origin story. I'm so
Yeah,
glad we get to do this. With that in mind, Benji, are you ready to pause and rewind?
let's do it.
Here we go. Take me back. Tell me all about little Benji.
Okay, little Benji. I was very loud. Which probably comes at no surprise. I was very loud. I was that kid who every single parents' evening it would be like, we've moved Benji like to each corner of the classroom, and he's just made new friends and has found a way to be disruptive in that corner of the classroom. I was just that person. Yeah, I just love to chat. I love to. I went to drama class. My friends, my mum paid for me to go to the drama school after school, and I loved that so much. And I loved being on stage, and yeah, I was just extra, just very, very extra. Um, and yeah, was not a shy, retiring wallflower at all in any sense. But then in many ways, I was also quite not introverted, but like. I spent a lot of time by myself, like reading. I love to read. I think at first it started as a way to just like not have to go outside at school,
Hmm.
because I just didn't want to have to go like play football with the boys. If I wasn't getting to play like jump rope with the girls, then I was inside in the library, just I guess like escaping into these different worlds, right? And so I was a really big reader, and my parents are really supportive of that actually. They were very big on education, and so they really wanted us to all to read at like a level that was like way above, where we were meant to be, right? And they were really kind of passionate about us doing well at school. So I was a very bookish kid. I think I've always been, I guess, quite good at learning, I think. Like I've always kind of been in like the quote unquote. I mean, I find the whole idea of like top and bottom sets at school like problematic in
Hmm.
hindsight. But I was always the one who was like in the kind of topish kind of sets. Apart from maths, I never really got maths. Counting is not my thing. I get confused like at the supermarket when I'm counting change. Like I'm just it's not my thing. But like anything else, I've always been pretty good at, or like been pretty good at like faking it till I make it. So at least seem like I'm like confident and good at, even if I don't know what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Do you still see quite a lot of little Benji in you now? I mean, obviously with the loudness and the being front and center and not being afraid to use your voice.
Yeah, I definitely would say so. I think what a lot of those attributes that at the time, I guess, were seen as negative, I now harness, right, as my
Mm,
power, which is I feel like I get along with people very easily.
yeah.
I'm someone who is very confident, or at least if I'm not feeling confident, I'm able to project confidence in a way that I think just allows me to do the work that I do in an impactful way, even if I'm not like feeling it 100%, right? I do a lot of facilitation, speaking work, like that sort of thing. And so I think having that confidence and that drive is really kind of valuable to the work that I do now. And that comes from being a young child and being pushed on stage. And I think also like the like reading, um, I think having read so much as a kid has meant that uh I don't know. I think it's really helped me because I think through reading you get to engage with experiences that are different to your
Mm.
own, right? And I think that really kind of expanded my worldview at a really young age. I was definitely reading books that I shouldn't have read when I
Yeah.
was younger. Um, but I think that actually really helped me expand my worldview, and I've always been a very critical person. And I think that also comes from reading a lot as a child.
Yeah, giving you those different perspectives that inform your critical thinking, and being able to not just read nuanced situations, but also be able to understand them and therefore translate them to an audience and bring them along on the journey.
Yes, 100%.
Mm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
And just understanding how to construct a narrative,
yeah,
right? I think that is so, so valuable to like justice work. It's like getting how to, I guess, like succinctly and like compassionately, and also in a way that's accessible, right? Like bring people along on that
yes,
journey, and you do that by constructing a good narrative, right?
yeah.
A lot of this work is storytelling, and I think that comes from I get kind of that skill set from reading as a
Yes.
child.
Absolutely. I think storytelling when it comes to inclusion and well-being is the way to bring people along. And I think it's a compliment to you. It's something that you nail as you go through your work and get to know it. What's perhaps a favorite anecdote that you've heard about yourself from your parents or someone as you were growing up?
I think something that a lot of memories that I have as a child are of being alone, like reading alone by myself a lot. And also like I guess like feeling different, which is like a classic like queer
Yeah,
kid experience. I have memories of like my dad forced me to join the football team um when I was in primary school, and so we would have to practice on a Saturday morning, and I would be in the car and I would be crying my eyes out. I did not want to do it like every week.
mm,
And I'd get shoved out there and I'd be like shivering in the corner of the football pitch, like just not enjoying life like at all. And every Saturday for like months and months and years, and yeah, really rough. And that those memories stick out to me for so many different reasons. I think like one big one is that I'm actually someone who is like a very active person now. So I run like several times a week, like actually just on a football team, like, and I love going to the gym. And
mm,
I always thought that fitness and sports were just not for me. I thought I wasn't like a
yeah,
sporty vice, right?
yeah,
And now looking back, what it really was is that how I was meant to engage with sports was like tied into like I guess like this kind of stereotypical idea of like what it is to be masculine.
masculinity. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Do you know what I mean? And so, like, to be sporty as a boy, you had to love football,
yeah,
and you had to want to be doing like the rough and tumble, and that was just not really me, you
yeah,
know. And I think also as well, I think my dad like sensed that I was different. And I almost feel like if I'd been like a quote unquote like typical boy, and I was just like, you know what, I just don't enjoy this.
yeah,
I think he probably would have like been like, yeah, it's fine, do something else, right? But it wasn't just about the football. It was about kind of what that was meant to shape me into
yeah,
to being.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, not,
That's interesting. So interesting.
that's one of my earlier memories. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. That feeling different is such a common thread on here. I don't think there's many guests that it hasn't come up for. But I'm over a decade older than you, and those experiences are so similar. I did not believe that those spaces were for me. I didn't feel safe in those spaces. I wasn't encouraged in those spaces in a healthy or sensitive way. And so what that did is it shut those spaces off to me.
Yeah.
But you look at me now, and same as you, I'm a runner. I love the gym. I love gym classes. I love being active. I love hiking. but I had to find that myself rather than being nurtured to find something that suited me or that adapted to how I needed to experience it.
Yeah, 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 100%. And there's do you know Ellen Jones?
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And like yeah, Ellen she has in her new book, she's got this whole chapter on kind of sport and how it pertains to LGBTQIA plus inclusion and I yeah, and I felt so seen, and it's just like it's so clear how these spaces are kind of designed to include and exclude, right?
Yeah.
And they often not fair until we make them so,
Yeah.
right? And consider the different ways in which they do it, exclude people, and also how like something as I would guess someone might say inconsequential as like a Saturday morning like football like practice could really kind of shape a child's like sense of
Yeah.
self and sense of self-worth, right?
Mm.
In ways that we absolutely should be encouraging parents to kind of think more about. And as a society, we need to kind of be challenging these kind of really toxic, harmful norms.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love seeing queer people, queer sports societies and groups and clubs pop up because I'm like, yes, reclaim it, because we didn't always have it. Love it. Uh, what were you like at school? Got a little bit of a feeling from your intro. And what was the goal that you wanted to do when you grew up? That typical question, because obviously well-being and inclusion consultant probably wasn't on the cards at that time. So what were you like at school? What do you think you wanted to do?
So I wanted to be a writer,
Okay.
actually, which I am a writer now,
Tick.
so tick. So yeah, I always thought I'd be like a fiction writer,
Hmm.
essentially, which could still happen, to be
Yeah.
fair. My book is non-fiction, but yeah, I would love reading, so naturally I just thought I would become a writer, to be honest with you. So I feel kind of good that that's kind of I've realized that dream in a certain aspect. And then in terms of how it was at school, so is this primary school, or secondary school?
And either as you go through kind of thing. Because for many of us, it changes.
Yeah. Yeah, it really, really did change for me,
Mm.
I would say. There is, of course, like a sense of innocence in primary school that I
Yeah.
had. Um, I knew I was different in some way, and I wasn't like the other boys. But I don't know. I guess I kind of thought that I didn't think about it too much until I had to, I guess. And
Yeah.
there was a sense of freedom that I think I had at primary school that I definitely didn't have going into secondary school. Yeah, it was tough. I went to a boys' school. I
Where
went to
did you whereabouts?
in like Fulham-ish area.
Hmm.
London, Catholic boys' school, and it was very white,
I was gonna
very
say, as a black queer kid.
yes, who came from
Yeah.
South London.
Right.
And I would say I grew up. So class is like a funny thing in this country, right? Like, or in general, anyway.
Mm.
Because I grew up, I would say wealth-wise, like middle class. I would
Yeah.
say like wealth, the income status. I would say, my parent, I never struggled at all financially as a child. But in terms of like the other elements, like absolutely not there, right? In terms of like, I guess the other things that come with class, like, holidays you've been on and spaces you belong to and stuff like that. And I went to a school where people were just from a whole different kind of world to me. And my parents really pushed me to go to that school because they wanted me to succeed, right? And there are studies that show that kids who grow up with people around people who are a different kind of social like class than them, quite a higher social class than them, actually earn more, right? Because it's like when they're older, because it's a privilege that's tied to proximity, right, and network. So there is something in that, but it did mean that I definitely didn't feel safe, or I didn't feel kind of seen. I very much was on the margins, from a class perspective, and then also from like a race perspective, and then also when I realized that I was gay, I was like, oh my gosh. So from that perspective, I also felt very different. And there's something about boys. Well, let me not generalize, but I feel something is about children in general, I think, and teenagers where difference is smelled out, it's like sniffed out.
Yes.
And everyone wants to be like the same. You want to be like the dominant, the homogenous. You know, you want to align with what everyone else is doing, what everyone else is, how everyone else is kind of existing, and I definitely felt that at my school. There were a lot of people who, I got teased a lot. I was a larger kid as well, so that was also a whole thing. And people, I think, definitely didn't necessarily want to be around me or be friends with me because they could tell that I was different, right? Even though
Yeah.
I'm saying that, no, I'm straight.
Yeah.
Which we all did. Um, and stuff, and I was trying my best to assimilate, but it just wasn't really something that like totally worked. Something that I would say about teenage Benji though is that like I was not a quitter. Like I didn't, and not that it's like a value judgment on anybody who, it's really kind of crumbles in such an environment, but I think I was raised in a household that also was quite hostile in many ways, in the sense that my parents were always like, no one is going to save you. You need to work twice as hard for half as much, because of your race. Um, and also like we're raising you to be a go-getter. And so
Mm,
you need to strive for what you want. If
yeah.
they're teasing you at school, then, figure it out, you know.
Is that an approach that you look back on with gratitude, or do you wish it had been a little bit softer?
I think yeah, I do wish it had been softer. I think
Mhm.
the ability to be soft is a privilege.
Okay.
I would say it is a privilege that isn't afforded to everyone, and I
Yeah.
do wish that I'd have that privilege, but unfortunately I didn't. And whilst I can recognize that I've gained a lot of resilience from being raised in that way, and that was why in when I was at school, whilst I was teased a lot, I also fought back a lot. And I was the loudest person in every room that I was in. Like I got to a point, I got to a point where I was just like around like 14. And I was like, screw it. Whatever. Look, I can't hide, so I'm just gonna be super extra because look, like, almost like offense as defense kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I would wear like just the most like wildest outfits, and like I had these like 6-inch platform boots that I would like walk around in, and like I don't know, I was very much like a screw it, like I need to back myself, like I
Yeah.
again, no one's coming to save you, and that got me through, and in many hard times in my life as an adult, that kind of sense of like that self-drive is something that does kind of get me through, and it's a societal thing as well, existing as a black queer person in the society that we live in means that you often have to fight, right? And that's why I say the ability to be soft is a privilege. um but of course I do still wish that I'd had the ability to be soft. I do still wish that I grew up in a household and I grew up in a world that would allow me to live,
Yeah.
a softer life, and to be more kind to myself, and to be more open, and to be more trusting. But unfortunately, that just wasn't how it was for me, and that's
Yeah.
how it is for many people.
Yeah.
School was a battleground. I go home and I'd have to fight as well. And so yeah, not so great. And then sixth form was better because we had so it was a boys' school, but then essentially girls joined in sixth form. And that was great because I made some more friends then.
Yeah.
And actually a lot of the guys in my year kind of changed in those years. I don't know. I think maybe it's like they're getting closer to adulthood.
Yeah.
Also having that external influence, having a bit more freedom in sixth form. Also, a few people came out as well in my year. I actually never officially came out at school, which is hilarious. Because
Just didn't need to, or
I I think people just stopped asking.
okay, fair.
I think people just stopped asking, and I didn't, and I never really like wanted to proactively broach the
Yeah.
topic. It went from like hiding it to being like, actually, it's none of your business, leave me alone. But a few people who actually were more quote unquote like popular and like well liked came out in sixth
Okay.
form, like one or like I think like two or three, and that also I think changed things a little bit. People
Yeah.
were like, oh, actually, maybe homophobia isn't cool. So sixth form was a bit better for me, and then also as well, it's like the the kind of the excitement to go to university, and like I think that also like it's like a little light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So that made that experience just a lot better as well. Getting to choose your subjects as well. Like I don't know, I had a much better time at sixth form, I would say.
Same. It dissolved. It just dissolved the intensity of whatever I was going through, which was quite extreme bullying and such. And there was an emotional maturity that came from some people. It weeded out some of the less favorable people that were around me at the time, and same. It was just a more pleasant experience.
Yeah, definitely. And so when people say, "Oh, I can't, I'd love to go back to school days," I'm always like, I cannot relate.
Hell no, no.
Absolutely cannot relate.
No, not at all. Yeah, same. It's the idea of a school reunion still, all these years later. No, I'm good. I'm good, thanks. What about university? What was that like for you?
I loved uni so much, so much. I just feel like the whole of my teenage years, I was just waiting to go to university.
Yeah.
And I had the best, like I had the cliche, like best 3 years of my actual entire life at uni. I went to Sussex Uni in Brighton, and that was very intentional. I literally, if I could have applied to just one university, I would have applied to go there because I was like, I want to do English, they're great for English, and also I want to be very gay.
Yep.
So I want to go to Brighton.
Winning.
Yeah, exactly. And I just had the best time. I got really lucky with my housemates that I lived with. In first year, we're all like lots of us are still really close friends now. And they were really great. And then I was literally that person. I'd go out like Monday to Saturday. I had a different group of friends I'd go out with on each night of the week. And I loved it. I was super social, like in like loads of societies, like joined an LGBTQIA plus society, and I joined I was like part of the radio society, and I loved doing that. And yeah, I just had like the best time. Loved my course as well. Did English and philosophy, and like yeah, just like loved it. And yeah, it was great. It was literally just like partied loads. Still went to all my lectures and seminars. I just generally just like loved it. And made loads of friends and also was just so free.
Mm,
I just really felt like that was a place where I didn't necessarily like need to fight anymore
yeah.
to
Yeah.
be acted and to be seen and to be valued. And actually, I was meeting people who actually celebrated me for who I am, and that just felt so great. And yeah, it was so great. I mean, it wasn't like 100% amazing.
No.
I would say like maybe there were a few negatives that came into play when it kind of came to like becoming I guess a queer adult and like in going to queer spaces, and there were some negative experiences I had in kind of that aspect of things. But yeah, in general, it was really great.
It sounds like a moment of kind of like freedom and self-realization and belonging.
Yeah, 100%. And like just like and like self-actualization
Mm,
in a way that I just didn't have the freedom to do
yeah.
before, like I couldn't be myself at home, I couldn't be myself at school. And so uni was like a combination of those two things where I could be myself in the classroom and I could be myself in my halls, and it was just like just like a dream come true. And I was just so happy to be free, I would say.
Yeah. What was it like then? You've mentioned home and the environment at home a few times. Were you able to carry that freedom and self-actualization when visiting home and re-engaging with home life?
So my parents moved to Ghana when I was 18. When I moved to
Okay.
they moved to Ghana and they went with my siblings. And so I didn't have like a quote unquote like
Yeah.
home in the UK to go back
Yeah.
to holidays, things like that. So I would see them at Christmas.
Okay.
I went
Would
like every Christmas.
would you go? You'd go to Ghana?
I'd go to Ghana, yeah, to
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so well, yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily want to talk too much about my relationship with my parents because
Yeah.
it's yeah. There's a lot there to
Yeah.
unpack.
Yeah.
But what I would say is that something that a real something that I really have made the most of in my adult life is just the ability to kind of be my own person.
Yep.
And there's a saying in my culture, and I think I'm not sure if it's like unique to my culture, but anyway, it's the one I grew up around, and it's like take the meat and leave the bones.
Okay.
It's the idea that like even if a situation has been like negative in some way, like is there something of value you can take from it, right?
Hmm.
If there
Yep.
is, focus on that, like make the most of that. And so when it comes to like my family, my home life, it's really about my culture. I love being Ghanaian.
It's a
I
beautiful country.
beautiful country, like beautiful culture,
Mm.
awesome
Yeah.
food. I've got family relations that I really treasure. I'm close to like my siblings and like my grandma and like and I've got some great cousins that I'm close to as well. Um, and yeah, and also elements as mentioned of my childhood, which I think have really put me in good stead.
Yep.
For better or for worse, I do feel like ultimately I've been able to kind of survive a bit easier as a black queer person in environments that are very hostile because
Yep.
I grew up with having a sense of like self-drive and resilience kind of embedded in
Yeah.
me. Um, yeah.
Yeah. I guess those two quite conflicting feelings can exist at once.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like and I can only speak for myself, but I find that ultimately I find that I can get weighed down quite easily if I just like center and focus on the negative of it all, you
Yep.
know. And I don't know, sometimes I just feel like it's more productive for me to kind of just like put that to the side and just like focus on like, what I can change and what I can kind of take from the situations that
Yeah.
is and how I can invest that in myself to make the future brighter and better for me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in some ways it must inform the way that you show up now as well, in terms of like living so as you said, unapologetically, loudly, and enabling other people to do that as well.
Oh,
Particularly people from Ghana, right? Where it has been a struggle over the last few years, certainly.
oh, 100%, 100%.
Mm.
I'm so passionate about being a visible uh queer Ghanaian
Yeah,
person. I'm coming from a country and a culture that is very, very hostile to people
yeah,
like me, where people like me are actively persecuted. I think it's so, so important that
yeah,
people like me exist, right? And
yeah,
are bold and are loud about who we are. And I think also as well, kind of going back to tying it back to kind of the school conversation. Um, and that idea of like, because yeah, that's really stuck with me actually. What you asked about, do I wish that I had the ability to be soft? And I really do. And I think what really drives me now is like trying to create a world where like in an alter
yeah,
universe, like I could have been different.
yeah,
You know? And so in many ways, that's again like taking the meat, leaving the bones. It's like,
yeah,
eh, like it was not great, but at least it's now giving you an inspiration and a drive, right, to change things for.
yeah, yeah. And you're creating those spaces for you and others to be softer now. The way you show up is vulnerable sometimes, and you're giving yourself that permission to do that now, even if you didn't have it back then.
Yeah, 100%, definitely. And oh my gosh, and I am absolutely living like the life that I wanted to live when I was
Yeah.
younger, and I'm doing it extra, extra hard to make up for lost time.
Extra hard and extra loud.
Exactly, very loud.
Here for it, here for it.
Yeah.
Um, Talk to me about early career kind of thing. What did that look like for you?
Um, so my parents, by the time I got to university, my parents are very much like, so we feel like you should be a lawyer.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I don't think that is necessarily for me, but I'm gonna say not along because I don't
Hmm.
know exactly what I actually want to do really. The writing thing, it was like a very much a childhood thing. And by the time I got to university, I kind of was just like, oh, I don't know if like writing's for me, but I also don't know what else I'm gonna do. And so law was like kind of a thing that in my mind at uni, I was like, okay, well, I'll put like a law conversion course after university and like go down that route. And then after uni, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I was just like, ah, I just don't see that for me. And so I was like, okay. I was gonna get a job and just figure it out. And you
Yeah.
know what? That's advice that I give other people. Now, younger people, I get invited to come and speak to young people of like sixth form age, like university age. I was speaking about my uni before and stuff, and we're just like such an amazing kind of awesome opportunity to give back. And something that I do say is like, if you're sat there and you do not know what you want to do, that is absolutely fine.
Hmm.
That's absolutely fine. You are still so young. You still have so much room to grow and develop, so many experiences, some experiences that you still need to have to fully kind of realize what you're quote unquote meant to be doing. And also as well, like we are constantly on a journey to becoming the people that we're meant to be in this life. And so, what that means is your purpose today may not be your purpose tomorrow. So, this idea that at the age of 18 or 21, everyone should be like, yes, this is the exact route. It's kind of ridiculous, right? When you think
Yeah.
about it. For some people, absolutely. Do you know what I mean? But the fact that everyone should be in that box is like not realistic. So, whilst I did a panic, get like a random job, a sales job. And at the time, I was like, what am I doing? Especially as 6 months later, I got fired. In hindsight, I think actually I made the right choice because it all kind of worked out.
Absolutely. And I do think we need to just have a little word with our younger selves, as one of our previous guests said. But also just give ourselves the space to change. And you've said it yourself, to change over time, and what we want and what we need flips.
Yeah, 100%,
Mm,
100% definitely.
yeah,
And also you just never know like what will kind of come from just being like, screw it. I'm just
yeah,
gonna do something that works for now and just see what happens. Like you never
yeah,
know. Like
yeah.
that sales job, I basically, long story short, it was for a marketing company, and I was in like the sales team, and for a product that was like a strictly like a fashion and beauty PR product.
Mm,
And I was awful at selling, but what I was great and I've always been great at, is just like chatting and making
yeah.
friends. So I made a ton of friends at that company, and essentially when I got fired, someone on the content team of the product I was working on or selling was like, "Hey, why don't you come and work on our team?" And so I literally had like my leaving drinks, and then like a week later, which who was leaving drinks for firing? Me. Anyway. I had my firing leaving drinks, and then literally like the next week I was back and I was working literally like a desk away
Mm,
from my old desk. Hi. But and I loved doing that. I was just like doing like little articles and things and doing some kind of like client servicing stuff. And then that got me think into the world of like marketing and like advertising and media. And I was like, oh, so then I applied for a job at an ad agency, and I did that for several years. And I loved doing that. And then, yeah, so I think really like, don't overthink it sometimes. Sometimes like just saying yes to what makes sense
yeah.
now will actually put you on the right path for the future.
What was the moment where you found your voice in inclusion?
So at that ad agency, it was when I started the employee resource group. So me and a few of my friends, and do you know what? At the time, I don't think I fully recognized the significance of what we were doing or the journey that I was embarking on in that moment. It was just really instinctive. Like we didn't have an employee resource group. I.e., there was no kind of group that was advocating for like the needs and like of people who are marginalized at our company. And the ad industry is like very, very white, and it's very like, dominated by men, and it's just yeah, and the nepotism as well, and like there's so much that kind of needs to change, and it's slowly changing, but like
Mhm.
in many ways it's kind of quite an exclusive industry. And so me and a few of my friends were like, hey, let's start a group where we come together and we can like talk about kind of experiences that we're having and opportunities that we feel like we deserve that we're not being afforded, and then talk about how we can lobby to change it, right? Within our agency, and also, how we can potentially change the industry as a whole, right? And which sounds like a huge task, but at the time we are just like, yeah, no one's doing
That's
this.
it.
let's do it. Why not? And so yeah, and that was really what got me started because I loved it. I felt like really purposeful. And we managed to make even we managed to make small changes that made a huge difference to the experience of people that are working at our agency. And I got to connect with lots of different people who were working within kind of the D&I space within the worlds of within advertising. Um, and it also really made me realize that I think at that time, I guess, I don't know, I guess at that time, it was really pivotal for me because I kind of just accepted things for what they were, I
Mm.
think. When it comes to the world of work, I was very much thinking about how I thought it was a game of like me fitting in, right?
Yeah,
And I guess it is you're meant to think that, right? But actually, a lot of it is also like how can it kind of include me or how can I make it work for me?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And because these things are malleable, right? Like something that I often say is, um, when we're talking about like prejudice, for example, right? Like racism and like misogyny and homophobia and stuff like these things aren't as like natural as like the rain and the sun and the stars and the sea, right? When we're talking about like persistence or oppression, they're made, right? Prejudice is like learned, right? Like these are things that we can change, right? If we try. Um, and similarly with the world of work, it was a time when I realized that actually it doesn't have to be this way. Like it can be better, right?
yeah,
We can make improvements. And so that's ultimately what got me started on this journey. I was just like, yeah, I want to actually make things better for me and people like me. And kind of similar to what we were saying earlier about this alternate universe thing, right? Like in that moment, I was also like, in an alternate universe, like someone like me should have to think about these things and therefore would be able to succeed, right? And to kind of do better and do more. And a lot of the work that I do now, it's because there is an alternate universe where Benjy just is like I guess right now, like a business director at like an ad agency and is like a high flyer and because he had no constraints, right? Wasn't having to think about how his race and his orientation and his identity um would create these kind of blockers and obstacles for him in his career.
yeah. And finding that voice and inclusion is going to change that way for so many other people.
Yeah,
Your experience and the way that that's informed how you show up now, you are creating that for other people.
100%. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Trying to create the spaces that I want to exist within.
Yeah, and you needed.
And that I needed, right? And that I still need,
Yeah, yeah,
very, very that. Um, and so yeah, it's very much I would say it's a self-serving
yeah,
desire, right? But it's also a desire to create a better world for everybody, right? I think we all deserve, period. That's something that someone who said that? I saw that on social media like ages ago. It really stuck in me. It was just like we all deserve, period. And that's so
period.
true. We all deserve, right? It's just like,
Yeah,
which is so simple as a sentiment, but it's so monumental when you think about it.
yeah, absolutely. And you got another t-shirt slogan there.
There we go. Yappa for hire.
A new line.
Okay.
Um, Talk to me about someone who shaped you the most along the way.
One is my parents. I'm not gonna lie.
Hmm.
Um, because of the whole idea of like, I think I do just have like a determination that comes from how they raised me, I think.
Mm.
For better or for worse, right? I think in many ways, how I exist as a person is partially how they wanted me to exist, right? Um, but then also it's partially informed by, I guess, spite.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
And
Nothing wrong with that. And to be honest with you, it's not my story, but I echo it in the way that I show up.
Mm. Yeah, like it's like part of me also knows that like a lot of the way that I live now is like totally against what they deem to be quote unquote right or correct.
Yeah,
And so I lean wholeheartedly into those elements of my existence because through you. Right. Anyway, and then friends, I would say I've got so many great friends. So like such lovely chosen family. People that stick out to me is like my really, really close friend Marion. Um, who is also a black queer person, and we became friends when I was 16. They joined my sixth form, and I feel like we've just been on like quite a similar journey together. And there's so much of our experiences that are kind of interconnected and similar, and they've really been a great kind of safe space for me. And I really treasure our friendship. I would say my friend Emma, who was my first workplace friend. And she's a few years older than me. I mean, like she's like 3 years older than me, but because like we met when I was 21 and I did that first sales job, and so she was 24. She already just knew so much about, I guess, like the world of work and stuff, and she took me under her wing, and I'm really appreciative of that. And she'll tell me stories like we hung out last weekend. And she'll be like, "Do you remember when you came in, like a bit late on like a Friday morning, and when asked by our boss why you were late, you were like, oh, I was just so hungover. I just like, oh, it's just the day, and I had to take you to the side and tell you that is not acceptable at work." I don't know. So yeah, love her. I would say I made so many friends at uni. So a lot of my friendships, really appreciative of those. My sister is a content creator, and as well, so she makes travel content. And she is somebody who I look to as an inspiration from like I guess a work perspective, a career perspective.
Mm,
She's someone who has always been like a self kind of driver, and I guess we came from the same household, so we have that in common, right? But she's a an entrepreneur and a creative, and just like really great at what she does,
yeah.
and she very much inspires me. And then I guess wrapping up, my first. One of my first managers, this woman called Giselle. She's great, and she was my manager when I first joined the ad agency, and she was really supportive of like me kind of starting the ERG, and she is a woman of color, and yeah, she was very, very much like, screw this, like you want to make a difference, like you go do that, like, and she was very much like she really empowered me at that time, and I'm really appreciative to her, of her. For that. And then finally, there are people who inspire me in the kind of the space that I'm in, right? So Shah Bailey, who you know very well.
I do. I do. Shameless plug for my live podcast recording with Charles Bailey on the 16th of April, people.
Yes, yes, and I'll
She's
be there.
amazing.
I'll be there. I absolutely like love, love, love Shah.
Yeah,
I think yeah, the work they do is just like incredible. Um,
amazing.
and such just like a yeah, just it's a huge inspiration to me, and somebody who I had the absolute kind of pleasure and honor of working with quite early on, I would say, in kind of my journey in this space. And so yeah, I look up
Yeah.
to them a lot. And then a woman called Francesca Ramsey.
Okay.
I don't know if you know Francesca Ramsey, but she is like an OG content creator, like YouTube days. And she essentially is the first person that I saw online, um, talking about like her identity, in a way that was like educational and informative, and like aimed at kind of equipping and empowering people to make a difference. And it's interesting because I like, and we're now mutuals online, and she follows me and stuff, and which I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, but she very much, strangely, I look back at content that she made on YouTube when I was like 14. And I just thought it was really interesting, and I felt very seen. Of course, she was talking about being black and stuff, and I really related to what she was saying. But I look back at those videos, and I'm like, oh wow, like so much of my style is like very much influenced and inspired by her. And now she's like she's an actor and a writer, and she's so accomplished, and she's got a portfolio career, and all of it has been centered on her self-actualizing, right, and becoming the person that she wants to be, and giving back to her communities in the way that kind of she can do the best, and that she knows how, and she just really inspires me in every way, and I think she's somebody who, if I could achieve half of what she's achieved, like I'd be so proud of myself.
Oh, all just shout outs there. Thank you. Amazing. My final question for this segment is this. Looking back so far, what are you most proud of to date?
So I would probably say my book.
Yeah,
So I hope this helps how to be kinder to yourself and other people. It's basically everything that I believe in a book, right? So the importance of being kind rather than nice. So I always say I'm a kind person, not a nice person.
yes to that.
To be nice is to be like well pleasing, I would say, and to go with the flow, and to be like, someone who people can get along with very easily. And then kindness is about doing the right thing, right? By yourself, by your community, aspiring for what is right, what is just. And so I am a kind person, and I'm kind often in a nice way, but sometimes I'm not kind in a
Yeah,
nice way, and that's fine too. And then I talk about that in the book, and then also I talk about how we can be kinder to ourselves, and then how we can be kinder to other people, and then how I believe that small acts of kindness can change the world for the better.
yeah,
And I believe that that is kind of what I do, right? I wake up every morning, I try and find a way to be kinder to myself and kinder to others. And I feel like through those acts, I hopefully have a positive impact on the world. And that's what the book is all about. And hopefully it's inspiring people to do the same. And I'm really, really proud of it. I would also say, kind of related actually, is the impact I've been able to have with my content, I would say. Um, it always surprises and touches me when I meet people like, in my day to day, and they say that they've seen a video of mine that they have that's really touched them in some way, or that has really helped them understand something that they found difficult to understand before, or they've shared it with somebody. Lots of people reach out to me who work in HR, and they're like, oh, like, we're really struggling to get this initiative off the ground, but and I was finding it hard to explain why this is important. And I showed one of your videos to somebody senior, and they got it straight away. So now we're doing XYZ, and I'm like, oh, yes, yes, love that. Also, there was the other week actually. Oh my gosh, at Queer House Party, which is an event
it was
which.
so brilliant bumping into you there. I loved it.
Yes. I had such a good time. And so at that event, somebody, this gorgeous human being, bumped into me in the bathroom as well. Gosh, everything happens in the bathroom. And
Party.
right. And they basically were like, oh my gosh, you're Benjy, right? I was like, yes. And they were like, you have made me so much more proud to be like a black queer person. So like, thank you. And I like literally was like holding back the tears. I was like, oh my gosh, like stuff like that is just like priceless. And again, it's that thing of like being the person who you needed, right?
Yeah,
And I love the idea that like it makes me so happy to think that there are people who are like me, who are like 13, 14, like black, queer, just really realizing not only who they are, but also realizing that it's so at odds with, their culture, their culture, well, aspects of their culture and their identity and the environments they're in. And they may look to a video of mine and be like, but actually, like, it's okay. Like, it will be okay. Like, it will get better. And like, there's nothing wrong with me, right? And actually, I can go on to do great, amazing things.
The House of Happiness is London's ultimate sober clubbing extravaganza. We're led and delivered but created for all, whether teetotal, sober curious, or just taking a booze snooze. We love a day rave, and on a Saturday afternoon you can expect banging house tunes, DJs on decks, dancers on podiums, and a fully stocked alcohol-free bar. Flamboyant, bold, with a glitter station to boot. We're all about safe, inclusive fun, and we even have a pre-meet so that you can make new sober buddies before you hit the dance floor. Grab your tickets from Instagram now at House of Happiness Official, and we'll see you on the dance floor. Are you ready for some quick fire questions?
Let's do it.
What's an album, movie, or book that's had a lasting impact on you?
It's Khalees, Flesh Tone.
Oh,
I don't know if you know that album.
yeah.
It was the first time. So I'm a big, big music like head. If I didn't have like I've actually thought many times about starting like a just a music channel.
Okay.
Like New Music Friday is like my jam. Like I'm a big, big, big on music, and that was the first album that really like changed and altered my brain chemistry. I don't know. It's the first time I properly like because it's like a dance concept album.
Yeah.
Songs like blend into each other, and it's like it's a work of art, and also it's like fun, right? And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And it just blew me away. And Khalees is just so talented and just like such an innovator. And yeah, the album, I still play it like at least like once a week. Like I love it.
She did quite a lot of that at Mighty Hoopla a couple of years ago, and I was front of stage. She was phenomenal.
So good. Yeah, I was there.
Were
I
you
was there.
there? Yeah, yeah. Me and my friend got right to the front, and it was just she was really experimental during that set as well with some of the stuff she was doing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what just blew me away as well was like it was just like quick fire. Like it was
Yeah,
like song after song after song after
yeah,
song after song.
yeah,
And every one I was like, whoa, this is so good.
yeah. It was the highlight of my hoop for the weekend that year.
She is amazing. And
Yeah,
also somebody who is a multi-hyphenate, right? Like she does so many different things. Like, she's like a chef, she's got like a farm,
yes,
and she's an artist, right? Like she's just incredible. Love Khalees.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I love the first album as well, but yeah, all amazing. What's a saying you live by and one that you put in the bin?
So, let's go with putting the bin first.
Yeah.
Um, Anything related to like sticks and stones, words don't
Oh
hurt,
yeah.
all that nonsense. Like, the things that we say have an impact, right? They have an emotional impact if we're
Mhm.
saying them about somebody or to somebody, right? And they also have a societal impact, right?
Yeah.
Like, especially when we're talking about people and communities, right? How we describe them, how we speak about them does impact their experiences, right? And their life outcomes. So, yeah, anything related to that is like nonsense, right? We
Bin.
absolutely should be thinking about, what we say and the impact that it has on other people and on the world. One that I live by is a saying from an NPR article from 2005 called "Always go to the funeral," and the saying is just that: "Always go to the funeral." And essentially, it's the idea that it's somebody sharing a story about how their dad would always, whenever they were struggling, whenever they couldn't bother to go and do something difficult, right, or hard, their dad would be like, you need to go because we always go to the funeral. And it's the idea that funerals are like things that are like not many people are very like excited to go to funerals. Although I think it's a cultural thing. In my culture, Ghanaian culture, funerals are like parties.
They're huge, aren't they? They're huge. I was
Yeah.
staying at when I was 19, which is a long time ago. I was staying at this little B&B in Ghana in Accra, and the host, their host, she insisted that me and my friend at the time came to this funeral, and it was the end of the 40-day mourning period, and it was this massive party, and we ended up dancing in the courtyard of the place, and it was amazing.
No, honestly, I love that you had that
Yeah.
experience. Like, I wish everyone could experience like a Ghanaian wedding and a funeral because they're both just such celebrations of life. And so yeah, I think that is looking at it from like more of a like I don't know, maybe more of like a Western perspective where
Yeah, of
like a
course.
somber, idea of what a funeral
Yeah,
is, and it's the idea that like you don't want to go, but you need to go to show
yeah,
up, in respect to the person who's passed and also their loved ones, right, who have asked you to come, and that's something that I really like stand by. I think it's really, really important that we try our best to show up for those that we care about, right? So people that in our lives, right? Our loved ones, our relationships, right? But then also just people who we don't necessarily know, but are still people of worth, right?
yeah,
So the communities that we're a part of, communities in our society that are marginalized and that are facing obstacles at no fault of their own. I think it's really important that we always go to the funeral, that we always try our best to show up and do what is right.
yeah, 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 and not be afraid of those uncomfortable. or sad situations because they're opportunities to show that you care.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
100%,
Oh,
definitely.
I love that. I've never heard of it, but I love it. What has been the best adventure of your life so far?
Um, it is just like self-actualizing.
Mm,
I think like um I very much I would say like from my childhood to like going to university, I was existing in a way that was like out of like this necessity, I think, and very much shaped by the spaces that I was in that I had no choice but to be in, right? Whether it was at home, whether it was at school, and that shaped me in a way that I was like, I guess I was in survival mode for all of those years. And from 18 onwards, I feel like slowly but surely I've been able to strip away the bits of myself that, the harder bits of myself, right? That I needed for protection that I don't necessarily need now. Keep some of the bits that I still want to keep, right? But then also really being able to have experiences that I wanted to have when I was a child, or and like live out dreams that I had for myself when I was younger. And yeah, and so I think like that has been the best adventure of my life so far. And I think coming to 30 now, I there's still so many things that I want to do, but I do feel like I feel really reassured and happy and content that I am on a path that my younger self would have wanted me to be on,
yeah.
which is really great.
And you're enjoying it as well.
Having the absolute best
I love
time.
it.
I literally, that is one thing about me. I love enjoyment. I am enjoyment king, champion. I'm that person. Like, I'm here to have a good time.
Hey, definitely here for that. What three words would you use to describe you and your origin story?
I would say queer.
Yep.
Right? Queer from like an identity point of view, but also queer in just like not binary, right? Sort of way, sort of thing, right? So yeah, queer, and then unapologetic, absolutely
One of my favorite words. Like, yeah.
all day, every day, and then kind.
Do you know what? I'm pretty sure that is in my Instagram bio as well. Queer unapologetic kind.
Whoa, if I plagiarize that, I swear to
No, it says chaotic, queer, and kind, unapologetic as fuck.
you, that is
We're
a
sinking, babes.
we see each other.
Yeah, I
We-
love it.
I love that.
We're here for it, here for it. Love all those things, and I can totally see how they perfectly describe you. Let's fast forward a little bit. What exciting things do you have coming up?
So, turning 30 on Thursday.
Yeah.
That's exciting. I'm really, really excited for this new decade. And yeah, I'm just really getting older, and aging is such a privilege, and I'm really excited to meet the new versions of myself that are around the corner, I'm sure. And yeah, I think as a freelancer, my desire really is to be able to keep working on inclusion focused projects that I believe in, right? I think I would love to do more L&D, like learning and development. I already do quite a bit. But I'm always open to like working on more like training and like strategies and designing training. I love doing that as well as delivering it. So more of that kind of stuff. And yeah, and continuing to hopefully have an impact with my content as well, and the positive messages that I'm putting out into the universe. So yeah, that's me.
Hit you up.
Please.
What brings you joy?
I would say moving my body. So moving my body when I'm running or at the gym, moving my body in the club, dancing. I love festivals. I love just being outside and yeah, being amongst other people and relate to that. Being social. I'm a big social person. Like love just like meeting new people and hanging out with my friends.
Penultimate question. What takeaways do you have for anyone listening wanting to carve out either a career, a space in inclusion?
So I would say one. be passion led, I would say. Like, what's your why? Figure that out. I think is really, really important. You can be an advocate. In fact, all of us should, of course, be advocates for inclusion, right? And for justice and for fairness, um, and for equity. Um, but we don't all have to be working in a field that's related to that, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that you figure out what your why is, because actually your why may exist outside of like, you having this be a career, you know?
Yes.
So that's the first thing. What's your why? So mine is like the workplace, right? And I think like that's always what I come back to. Be open-minded, kind of related to the first point. Equity work comes in many different forms. So I think a lot of people think that in order to be in the space, you need to like just be somebody who is like, I don't know, like a strategy consultant, or you need to be somebody who is like doing like keynotes, or I don't know. There's so many different inclusion, equity focused like roles. And so just be like very open-minded, and having your why will also help
Mm,
you actually really
yeah.
pick exactly what you should be doing rather than what X person on LinkedIn seems to be doing, right, within the space. And then I would say the third is like network and like say yes. And so it's really important that you understand what your why is, again, so that you understand what you should be saying yes to. But once you have that clear in your mind, say yes to as many of those things as possible, right? Because you absolutely never know who you might meet and who they might be able to connect you to, that might lead you to working on something that is making a really amazing, positive difference. Um, because yeah, I think this is very much, in my experience anyway, I think the value that you can have within the space is really tied to who you're working with, I think, and what their priorities are and what change they're trying to make, right? We can't do this work alone. So you need to be working with other people who are on a similar mission to you. And in order to meet those people, you need to go outside of your circle, right?
Yeah.
Your best to connect
Yeah.
with as many new people who are aligned with you as possible.
Yeah. Outside of your circle and also sometimes outside of your comfort zone. And that also takes saying yes, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. My final question for you, Benji, is this. Do you have any words of encouragement or wisdom for anyone out there to help them get to wherever they're going?
You need to remember that no one knows you more than you know yourself, right? We're all experts in our own experience. And so whilst it is important to, as we said, go outside of your circle, meet people, like be open to new perspectives, 100%. But ultimately, the opinion on your life that you should respect the most is your own, right? No one knows you better than you know yourself. And especially if you're somebody who relates to my experience and our experience, right? If you're somebody who is marginalized, often society will tell you how you should think and feel about yourself. And it's really important that you remember that ultimately no one knows you better than you, right? And connected to that, it's therefore important that you nurture the relationship that you have with yourself, right? It's the longest and the most important relationship you're ever going to have, right, in this life. So make sure you actually spend time investing in the relationship that you do have with you and figuring yourself out. And the rest will follow from there.
Benji, I have absolutely loved spending this time with you, and especially during your birthday week as well. It just feels really like poignant, and thank you so much for being you and the way you show up. And I hope to see you on a dance floor sometime soon.
Yes, 100%. Likewise. And thank you so much for this conversation. It's been incredibly nourishing and actually really eye-opening as well for me. There are so many takeaways for me personally. So I'll be reflecting on those, especially like the bit about being soft. I think that's something that I don't necessarily think about enough.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard and it's uncomfortable, but yeah, I've had to learn it myself. So it comes from all of these things. I think sometimes with the work that you do and the work that I do with this podcast and other things, I think that people think it comes from a preachy position, but it
Mm.
doesn't. It comes from I've learned this lesson myself and I want to share it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. a
Yeah.
hundred percent, you know. It's driven by, I got a whole chapter in my book on it's called Why It's Okay to Change Your Opinion as You Gain New Information, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I am on a journey of doing that loudly and proudly. Sometimes I get DMs and people are like, oh, well, you said this yesterday, but I found this video from 3 years ago and you said this, so you're a hypocrite. And I'm like, that was for 3 years ago. I
Yeah.
I have no shame about the fact that that was what I believed then. This is what I believe now.
Yeah.
But like, I'm a human being, right? I'm constantly growing, I'm learning, and actually, what I'm trying to do is model that for other people to be like to show that it's actually okay, right?
Yeah.
And we actually should be in the pursuits of growth and development always. And so yeah, I think like I'm so aligned with that. It's not at all from a place of like preaching. It's actually from a place of being okay with being like genuinely ignorant. We're all ignorant about something, right? Doesn't make you a bad person, just means that you're a human being, right? What's different is if you're willfully ignorant, if you're like sticking your fingers in your ears going, la 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 la, I don't want to know. That's what has a reflection on like your values and your character. But we're all genuinely ignorant about something, so let's
Yeah.
try our best to kind of tackle that together.
Absolutely. Benji, thank you so much. I'll see you soon. Cheers.
See you soon, take care, bye.
Thank you so, so much, Benji. This episode was full of so many cracking moments. And the one that stood out for me was when Benji said, the ability to be soft is a privilege. And often, as queer people, we do not always get that privilege because through having to either hide or conceal our identities and mask and defend ourselves, our identities as well, and that's at home in the workplace as we go about our day, there is this need to be strong. There's this need to put on an armor, a mask, a facade, whatever you want to call it. And as you go through challenges and barriers, of all different varieties, relating to your identity. And as Benji talked about being a black queer kid that felt different, being soft isn't always an option. And I think it's really important that we acknowledge that, but as Benji also said, we all deserve, period. We all deserve the opportunity to be ourselves authentically and freely. And I love that Benji's doing that now. And the three words he uses to describe his origin story: queer, unapologetic, and kind. There's over a decade between myself and Benji, but so much of his story really, really resonated with me. And I love the fact that we share those three words in common as well, in how we describe ourselves and how we show up in the world. I love Benji's passion for critical thinking and nuanced conversations, and it really shines through in everything that he does and how he shows up. And his story again, quite similar to mine. His journey in inclusion started with joining an employee, setting up for Benji, in Benji's case, an employee resource group. And look at what he's gone on to do. And he is really, really, being a role model, a change maker, and a thought leader. And he is also creating the content, the representation, and the visibility that he needs and that so many other people need. I really loved it when he reflected on that moment at Queer House Party that I saw him at, where someone came up to him in the toilets. There's always a party in the toilets. I love it. And said to him, "Thank you." And how much that meant to him. So Benji, you are out there making a difference, and I'm so grateful for you and the work you do. Stay you. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Please do share it wide and far. Bring these conversations to an audience. They deserve to be heard. These stories deserve to be heard, period. Also, please grab your tickets for next week. I hope to see you at the Common Press in Shoreditch, where I will be hosting the first ever live podcast recording of Pause and Rewind with special guest Shah Bailey. You do not want to miss this. Thank you so much. Stay tuned for more amazing guests on Pause and Rewind.